This is another build sequence in Shaper 3D. I'm going to build this carafe style bottle. Ultimately, I'm going to do the finishing with a PET clear kind of look with juice in it, and we'll do that at the end of the tutorial. We'll talk about some of the visualization techniques. So this is a carafe style. It's going to have this kind of reverse curve profile. I'm going to create this out of using the lofting tool. So I'm going to create a loft from a perfect circle down in the body and then up into this fluted type piece at the top. So let's go into the 3D model. And here is what the part is going to look like. So I have a label, I have a ruled surface in the front and the back, and I have a punt area in the bottom, and then we have that curved area at the top and the closure. So the body will be the loft, and then the label area will be a Boolean operation, where I'm going to separate that material in the front and the back. Okay, so let me just turn off the solids that I have here, and we'll go into the body. So I'm going to bring in these sketches that I have created that make this body. We don't need that one. And we have this one, so I think this is it. All right, so yes, this took a while. It doesn't just happen magically. So essentially with lofting, we're lining up these sketches. I call them sources, but these two-dimensional pieces. And if we click them in order, top to bottom or bottom to top, and you string them together, you get the blending of these patterns. So this fluted pattern up at the top, I emphasized it by putting another smaller one here in the bottom. But then as it blends into these circles, the fluting area disappears. And it's like, where does that disappear? And that's the critical part. So I did several of these, and I just have a few of these in here. So these are a couple of others that I had experimented with. That's the closure. Don't want that. I think that's it. So I had played with the idea of blending the fluting area higher up, and then that didn't quite work. So I'll show you the results of that. So let's take that away. So when you select these sources, we see how it's a nice dark opaque blue. That's what we want. We want to select that. And I'm in a PC working with a mouse, so I'm just going to shift and select all of these sources here. So now that I have those all selected, I can come over my tools here, and I have the loft tool ready to go. So if I click on loft, it blends those all the way up. So clicking this X deselects those parts, and there it is. So like I said, this took a while to get the fluting to feather out to 0, because I wanted the fluting up in the neck area and then go away about here and then blend down into this perfect round area, because I want that to be very clean at the bottom, and I'm going to put my label area in there. So I did this many times. So we can see these variations that I had created. So it's a little hard to see. So I'm going to go into visualization. So this gray one here in the center, that's the one we like. And that's exactly the same as the one way over on the left. But I had saved a couple of these variations. So I'm going to go back into visualization. For a second, we can see a little bit better some of these patterns. So let's see. Let's just move these away. I'm just going to move this around so we can see the second one from the left. The fluting came down much further and created almost a little bit of a flat area at the bottom. The third one from the left, I didn't like that it disappeared too quickly. The fluted areas were not going far enough down. They were just only at the top, so I didn't care for that. And then the one after that, I believe it created a flat surface that was a little bit too close. So the geometries are pretty subtle, but you can see some of these little flat areas in here. And then that's too deep, And then this one was just about right. It feathered out to 0 right about in here. So that worked out really well. So that takes a little trial and error to do that. But once we get that down, we can have a nice piece of clean geometry there. Let's go back into modeling. I'm going to take the tests away. I'm double clicking up on that little cube at the top. That just by double clicking that anywhere, it brings us back to this nice little 3/4 inch view. And I'm just toggling around to take a look at this shape. All right, so that was the start, and that worked out really well. So now I need to put the push up in the bottom, and I want to curve the top. So I'm going to create 2 other solids to do that. So let's just take this away for a second. And let me take a look at my sources. So I'm going to take these sources away so we can look at the next sources. I'm sorry, they call them sketches here. So let's remove these. And that's the bottom one. Okay, so I've created these sources here at the bottom, and I'm going to revolve them. So again, this took a little time. I'm going to turn this into a solid, but I'm going to revolve this in a circle, and then I'm going to take this and I'm going to difference this from the bottle. So this will give me this nice curve here at the top. And then this part down here will give me that negative curve area in the bottom of the bottle. So it's just a matter of creating this line work so I can revolve this. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to go back to my tools and I'm going to look for revolve, which is not here. So if you don't see it, if you go under more things come up, and then here's revolve. So I'm going to select the revolve tool, and it's asking me, how do I want to revolve that? So I'm going to revolve that around this center area. I just clicked on that center line, which is on center. So this did it automatically 360. I want this to be 360 because I want that to be a full solid all the way around. I can select this 360 thing here. I can change that to whatever I want, but I want that solid. So that worked good. So I'm going to say, yes, we're good. I'm going to select this little one at the bottom, make sure it's all the dark blue. And I am going to do the same thing, go into more, and I'm going to revolve. And I want to revolve that around that center. So now I have that little piece at the bottom. So it's like a little kind of a half part of a disc. I've seen other people do this in different ways. You can create a whole ball at the bottom. Some people derive right from their geometry. There are many ways to do this. I just happen to do it this way. So you have to kind of experiment with all of these to see how that's going to work. All right, so let's just bring this in. So these are 2 solids. I'm going to go back to my body. Oops. Uh-oh, it went away. Hold on, let me bring it back. I have to remember to say, yes, we're good. So let's revolve around center. So I had check, yes, I want that. So now I'm going to bring, that's not it. Here, this body. No, I want both of those to exist. Where's our, okay, here's our new body here. All right, so this is the one I just lofted. So what we want to do is we're going to, let's use the term that they use. I call it, it's a Boolean operation, it's a difference, but let's see. So I'm just going to go into, I'm not going to select any bodies at this point. Let's just go into tools and see how we can approach this. Okay, so now we have all our Boolean operations here, our union, subtract, and intersection. So union is where we select 2 of these when we attach them, put them together. And I'm going to do another tutorial that shows a lot of that. We're going to do subtract. So I believe we select the body, and then I'm going to select that part, and that should separate that from the body. So I'm going to say yes. Now I have this on keeping the body. So let's take, let me find this body. Okay, so that went away. And I also have, so that was the bottle. I just took off that layer. That was the bottle before I had separated. So now I have this nice curve at the top. So I don't need that source anymore. So I'm going to go all the way down to my sketches and make that go away. So that's how I got that nice top curve. And the result of that curve lining up with the fluted area, I get this beautiful fluted area here, which I'm going to radius. So we're going to do the same thing on the bottom with this punt area. Go to Tools. I'm going to go to Subtract, select the main body, select that at the bottom, and then that should subtract that and say yes. Now I have that, okay, that went away. I took away that part. Let me find the right, okay, that's not that one. Okay, so I had that body. So now I have that subtle little curve at the bottom, and I have enough area here so I can radius the bottom, because that will be the next step, to do some radiusing here. Okay, so that's it at this point. I know it has these lines coming down. It's a little distracting at this point, but that's how the lofting process works. And Shaper nicely has this really nicely figured out, where we're blending from this fluted area at the top down to a perfect circle, and it's blending these points, these segments down at the bottom here. Those will not be apparent when we do the final design. Those will go away. Okay, so now it's a matter of radiusing. So I'm going to select that, and like our other radiusing things that we've done before, all I have to do is select that. And since this is a chain of segments, Shaper will recognize that. So I'm going to just select this arrow, this widget, and pull it out. And you can see how it's radiusing that whole sequence. I forget exactly what I did, so I'm just going to move this in and out, or maybe that looks a little steep. So I'm going to click on here and make that a little less. So let's do point. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Let's see, 1, 8. Let's try that. Okay, so now I've radiused that top little edge there. Yeah, it looks pretty good. It's a little steeper than I did before, but that's not bad. So we can do the same thing down here. So I'm going to just deselect that, select one of these segments, and I'm going to feather that out. And let's try maybe a little bit more. And say yes. So now I've radiused that bottom quite a bit down at the bottom there. Okay, so this is the bottle body with that radius. That's ready to go. So now I have this other source at the bottom where I'm going to create my label area. This process I've shown before, where I'm going to select these two sources, these two sketches. And if I select both, and then I'm just going to drag this up, it is going to separate that part of the body right there. And then I go yes. And that has created this label area. Now this fortunately turned into a almost perfect circle. That was not intentional. If it was intentional, it probably would have taken forever to do that, but it's almost a perfect circle. It's a little flat here, but that was not what I wanted to do. I just wanted to show creating a ruled surface that goes straight up like that. So that has been formulated there. So the next thing to do would be to radius this edge. I'm going to select one segment from each one of these and do this at the same time. I'm going to pull that out. And it's a little bit too steep, so I'm going to come in a little bit more. I'm just sort of estimating about here. That should work. Okay, so here is this design, fully built. And Shaper confirms that it's good geometry, it's clean geometry, so we're okay. So I'm just going to say yes for that and get rid of the source at the bottom of the sketches. Okay, and there we are. So the next part is the closure. So again, I'm going to go back to sketches. I believe I have, should be 3. Here we go, like this. So let's just take the main body away. Okay. So I have these 3 sources here. Now I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to loft these 3 together. I just need to look at it from underneath so I can make sure I select them. So I'm going to select the top one first. I need to select this other one I have right next to it here. And the reason I have that is because I'll show you what the resulting loft will look like. So I'm going to come underneath, hold shift and make sure I select that one and then this bottom one. And then go over to our tools and loft is available. Click on loft and say we're okay. So the reason I have, if I had done just 2, one at the top and one at the bottom, it would have connected them in a straight line. You see how I got this nice curve here? So by having those 2 close together at the top, it came up to a tangent up to that top surface there, perpendicular to that top surface, and then blended it down. I wanted that gentle curve to occur right there. So that became the closure. So let's deselect these, my sketches. So I'm just deselecting the sources, the sketches. So the same thing with the radiusing. I'm going to select one of these, and I'm just going to pull that out a little, and not too big of a. So that's going in. So that's going to come out. So about there, and say yes. So that's the closure, and that's a solid part that's ready to go. I'm not detailing the inside or the thread pattern or any of the finishes. This is more for an aesthetic approach to take a look at how this is going to work. So that is essentially our entire bottle. So I have, all right, let's find the original cap that I made. I sized it down a little bit and put it into position. And I'm going to bring in my final body. So these are just the other parts that I just created for the tutorial. So I want to make sure I have everything deselected. All right, so now we're back to where we started from. This is the shape that I had in the beginning. I'm going to get rid of the punt at the bottom. Not sure which one that is. There we go. Okay, so now in the visualization part, all we have to do is go up to where it has this modeling thing. We have the modeling, visualization, and then the drawings. We're not going to do a drawing for this one yet. I was going to focus on this visualization part. So with this selected, we can do the material variations on this. I had set this up with a clear, kind of a glossy finish and glass. So we have material options here. we can go into these different areas. So for example, glass, they have like a thick glass and a thin glass, and we can give a pigment to that. So that's how I created this part here. So once you create something like this, you can take it and you just drag it over to the body, and it makes that whole part that finish. So that particular one I had changed a couple of times. So let's try the orange on the body. And I'm going to take the green, put that up on the cap. And let's say I want to make this label the green also. So what I can do is come over here, and I see how I've highlighted. That's white. So I want to change that. So I'm going to come over to the green that we have set up, and I'm going to bring that over and put that just on that area. Now that label is not a separate piece of geometry. It is just the surface that I selected independently. So you can select things independently in here to do that. So this back one is still white. And then if I click in space here, I can hopefully make that go away. There we go. So this is, let's say this is the color I like. Let's say it's like an orange juice or something to that effect, and I have a green enclosure and things like that. We can now, that's under material. So this next option up here is environment. So these are different ways of setting up your environment with lighting. So I have it on transparent, so there's nothing in the background here. But we can select on a couple of these other ones, and it gives us a different feeling. It's a different kind of lighting that's going on here. They have names for them. I'm not sure exactly what they mean. You have the default or parent. That's pretty obvious. But color, mood. So we can see we have a little bit of a background that we can control. I have the shadow off. Let's see. Ground plane. So by doing that, we can put this shadow back on here. And this one, we can control the background color, this particular one. So you can, make it sit on a colored background or not. So that's an option for this particular one, which is interesting. So I'm not suggesting any of these, it's just these are options. So this one is kind of nice. It has a nice reflection on the bottle. I have a little bit of a shadow on the floor there, so it has that nice shiny PET look. So let's say I like this. So you go into this little gear icon over here on the side, and you can move the lighting source around. So see how the shadow is moving. I am controlling where the light is hitting the bottle. So normally when I do lighting, I put it so I have my light source coming over my left shoulder. So I'm dropping the shadow in the back. And usually that'll give us some nice reflections, but you can move them around depending on your geometry. As you can see how the flutes are being, having their highlights move at a certain point. I kind of like that big highlight here in the front by having that light source there, and then some of these other reflections in the fluting area, and a little bit of shadow going on there. So that looks pretty nice. So again, once you do that, I can still move my object around and see how it relates to that shadow and get this to be in the right point of view. So it's interesting. So they have this pretty well figured out. In some of the other programs, like the Form Z that I use, I have complete control over all my light sources. I can do as many lights as I want. I can control them. I control the color, whether they have shadows or not. There's more, it gets a little deeper, it gets more involved. So I'm able to control my renderings much differently than here. But this is really good because this is, you can get in here very quick, very easily, and they do a great job with this visualization. So light intensity is another option here. I think it just makes it brighter, kind of lightens it up a little bit. You get it nice and bright. I think that's about it. And like I had mentioned, this ground plane, I can take the shadow off if I don't want to have that. And then this also has the option of a background control, which is kind of nice. You can set that up. Right, so these are just some of the options. You have to go through these. I was going to say done. But they're sort of predetermined on basically the effect. So here we have like a really dark background. You can probably go in and control that. And then again, light intensity. So they have a lot of the same variations. It's just set up a little bit differently, but they are pre-controlled and you have to work with them. So it takes a little time to go through that. Okay, so that's building this bottle and then doing some materiality to get this to work. I will see you in the next tutorial.